Here are the step-by-steps for lesson 2 of Word. I will be following the step-by-steps in the book. You're welcome to just follow along with me in this recording, or you can turn to page 27 and be following in the book along with the recording. The first step is to open Letter from the data files. This one happens to be in the lesson 2 folder, which I've already opened, and we're going to use this letter to practice different features. Okay, first thing, sometimes when something doesn't space properly, it could be because you've pressed additional enters, and if we turn on the paragraph spacing button, it lets you know where enters have been selected in the particular document. If a student from a previous hour forgets to turn this off or whatever, all you have to do is deselect it and it goes away, and that's from the Home tab. We're going to make some changes to this document. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to we're going to select the word welcome at the beginning of the first paragraph here, and we're going to double click on it to select it. Now, you could have clicked and dragged to highlight, but remember, I like to show you things you may have not already known, and now it's selected. Then outside of this, I want you to just have your cursor anywhere in the first paragraph, and I want you to triple click, 3 clicks in a row. You can see that selects the entire paragraph. Now, once again, could you have clicked and dragged to select the paragraph? Sure, but the triple click is kind of easier than that goes. And what we're going to do next is we're going to move our cursor below the A in the word as of the second paragraph here. I want you to hold the left the next step they have is just practicing, selecting a portion of the text. You're good at that. You just click and drag to do that as you're going through that. Then another way to select text when you're working with it is with the Home tab selected right here. You're going to go to the Select, and you can select all, or you can select objects, or select text with similar formatting. Select all highlights the entire thing for you. Okay, so then, or we could just do select objects, and that would, in this particular piece, it must not have recognized that the graphic was an object. Okay, so if we're tired of seeing these things, we can go ahead and turn them off as we're working with it. Okay, for the next steps though, and I'm now on page 29, they want us to have it selected again, and what we're going to do is we're going to enter down, or we're going to go in the blank space that's right after the graphic, but before the first paragraph, and we're going to type in the date. The date that the book shows is this is May 13. We can really use any date there because we're just practicing as we go through it. And then now we're going to type in the name and address of the person who we are sending this letter to. Now, in keyboarding, students who have taken keyboarding, they've learned that you always have 4 blank lines between the date and the inside address. Your book only shows using 2. Some of those guidelines are flexible in the business world. I'll go with the keyboarding formatting, and we're going to type in the name of the person that we are sending this to. Now, if I press enter, I get the equivalent of another double space, and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is, while my cursor is still on this line, I'm going to switch from normal to no spacing, or I could have entered down and switched to no spacing, but you see that wouldn't adjust this particular text where I'm at. So I'm going to go back where I originally was, and I'm going to switch to no spacing. Now, it looks like it goofed up the spacing from this point forward, but we can fix that. Now, with no spacing selected, when I press enter, I get the equivalent of a single space, and I can at that time add her address, and I'm getting this information from the book, and I'm going to enter her city, state, and notice that I always use the 2-letter caps for state abbreviations. That's a business letter guideline. Okay, now if I click back to normal here, you will see that it gives me again that double space between paragraphs so that the spacing is correct as we are going to go through this. Okay, the last thing that I'm going to enter is a salutation, a dear, and we will make this be a little bit more formal. Oh, I just spelled her name, didn't I? In that we will put a courtesy title Ms. in front of her last name as we're going through this. Okay? Now, next, you are familiar with these pieces, and quite honestly, they are the undo and the redo buttons. They are a default part of your quick access toolbar, but if I want to undo anything, I can select it as many times. I've just clicked it twice and it's taken away a couple of pieces of text that I've entered. And then once I have undone something, I can redo something to get back to where I originally was as you're going through it. So we have the undo and the redo piece. Any changes that you make works that way. And the next thing we're going to do is practice with drag and drop and those kinds of things. Holding the control key, we're going to highlight, and you'll see with holding the control key it grabs everything prior to that point. Let's just grab the final paragraph, and I could have done a triple click also, and that would have selected that final paragraph for me. What we're going to do with this is we're going to drag it so that it's part of the previous paragraph. So do you see, while I have it selected, I just drag, I get that fun icon, I put it where I want it to be. I may need to adjust my spacing a tiny bit to make that work. Now I end up having an extra return in there, which I can then delete so that my information is correct. Okay, then the next thing is we are going to go to, once again, and select just this the sentence that we just practiced moving. We just practiced dragging and dropping. We can cut and paste if we want to do that. So for example, if I want to cut it from here, which also deleted my enter, and I'm going to fix, and I'm going to move it back to where I want it to be, I can paste it in. Okay? Or if I want to have this particular sentence appear a couple of times, I can copy, put it where I want it to be, and paste it also, and it'll come in. Now, we have different options for pasting as we go through this, but we're going to just come back to those at another time. So you can just use the cut and paste piece as you're going through it. Okay. Now as I'm looking at this, once again, I ended up with an extra enter. Right now, quite honestly, my document, I've got two sentences twice in a row. So we're just practicing options as we go through this. Then if you have, let's say that you've selected a couple of things. I'm just going to select this paragraph here. I'm going to say I'm going to copy it, and then I come back and I select another area of text and I go to copy it. It's actually going to remember those different pieces in the clipboard. It's saying, okay, how many of these things do you want to paste? Do you want to paste them all? Or do I want to delete that from an option? Right now I've got the paste or the exercise world option. So if I come, and this doesn't make sense, but if I just say I want to paste the exercise world, I can put that particular one where it needs to be as far as that goes. Now, once I've created something, I think I just goofed up. Okay, so now if we'd make some other changes here, if I would go ahead, say, and find another paragraph, and I want to copy that paragraph, I start seeing more than one of these paragraphs or sentences or whatever being listed here, and then I can make it a point in time that I want to paste them all, I want to clear them all, or whatever. But you can do a whole bunch of selecting, a whole bunch of copying, or a whole bunch of cutting, and if you open the clipboard up, you're able to see those individual pieces for any changes that you want to make. I'm going to go ahead and just close that and get back to a full screen. Now, there's sometimes in this next exercise, because our document is so short, doesn't make sense. But if you had a giant paper that you were working with and you maybe misspelled somebody's name consistently throughout the paper, there are ways that you can go in and look for those pieces so you don't have to be reading a giant paper just to find a particular button. Okay, so what we're going to look for right now is we're going to go and we're going to say we want to look for something. Okay, so we want to find, for example, the word exercise in this documents. And notice I can go to a Find Next, or if I wanted to replace exercise with something else, in the case of a misspelled name, I could do that also. But we'll just look at the Find piece, and when you do Find Next, it goes through the document. I happen to have that word a couple of different times, okay? So now if I move my cursor back to the beginning of the document, as you notice, I can keep, there we go, I can keep this dialog box open as I'm going through it. And let's say that the city Salem, which I spelled correctly, but let's say I spelled it incorrectly, and I had listed the city Salem a whole bunch of times in this document, okay? So if I say, okay, replace Salem with, salami, and I didn't spell that right, but, let's say that's what I want to do. I can say, okay, replace all of them at this time, or just replace this one individual one, and it'll go instance by instance if you press replace, or it will say replace all. It will do the whole works as far as that goes. So now I now have that change made where it's gone through and it only found the one, but now I have this person living in Salami, Rhode Island. That would be a very fun city, I think. If you close it, and if it's the last thing you've done, you could go back and undo that if you'd somehow made a mistake as far as that goes, okay? Also, within this same option, and I'm going to just make sure my cursor's at the top, I'm going to use the Go To feature, and this is saying, okay, what do you want to go to? And you can go to different sections of your paper if you have page numbering, or the Find and Replace is there as we go through that. So if I say go to line, for example, 5, and go to, it brings my cursor to what it considers is line 5. If I've set up bookmarks or comments or anything, I can navigate that way also. And the final thing we're going to look at is word count, okay? With my document and the changes I've made, I have 88 words. And so if it was important for me to know that information for a paper or whatever the case might be, I can get this mouse over to stop. There we go. But if you double click where it says words, then you're going to notice that you also find out how many characters, how many paragraphs, and how many lines. So you get a little bit more information that way if that's important for you to have. How many paragraphs? Usually you're never limited or whatever to paragraphs, but it gives you that information. It also tells you how many lines of text that you happen to have. So that is another way then to get at that information. In the Review tab here, there is a proofing area that allows you to get at the information where it says proofing here, and then you can also access word count that way, but you get the same piece. So there's always more than one way to get through this information. So you now have the tools that you need to complete your Lesson 2 assignments. Go ahead and check out the Schoology site to get that information. Thank you.